My brother's blood still stained the wooden floor when my father turned those empty eyes towards me and said I was the only thing left of his family. That's when I understood my real nightmare wasnly beginning. Before I start, I'd like to know where you're watching my life history from. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like this video. My name is Dorothy Malachi Wilson, but everyone here in Stonehenge, this little spot in the middle of nowhere in rural West Virginia, knows me as Grandma Di, the old lady selling homemade pies at the Sunday farmer's market. I'm 84 years old with hair as white as cotton and hands calloused from decades of hard work. Those who see me today, always smiling and giving treats to children, can imagine the story of pain and resilience I carry in my heart. I was born in 1941, in a simple wooden house, on a small farm about 5 miles from town. Our property wasn't much, about 30 acres, mostly tough scrub land, but with some good soil for planting corn, beans, and potatoes when the rains came at the right time. We also had some cattle, chickens pecking around the yard, an old mule named Dusty, who pulled our wagon when we went into town. My father, George Malachi, was a hard man of few words and many demands. From an early age, he taught my brother Jeremy to work the land and handle the small business Ash ran. They started with a roadside stand at the entrance to our property, then a small feed store that served the neighbors, and finally a hardware store in town. Jeremy was his pride, his mirror image, his continuation in this world. A man who doesn't leave a son to follow in his footsteps is like a tree without roots, leaves no mark on this world, was what Daddy always said when it had a few wisies after dinner and started philosophizing about life. My role was to help Mama with housework, learn to cook, sew, make soap and preserves. For a woman to have value, she needs to know how to keep a house proper and please her husband. My mother Sarah would teach me, always with her head down, agreeing with everything that came from my father. Jeremy was 10 years older than me, a handsome young man with an easy smile, and the slanted eyes he'd inherited from our grandmother, who they said had Cherokee blood. Unlike father, he was kind to me, brought candy from town, taught me to whistle, told ghost stories that made me sleep with the blanket pulled up to my neck on winter nights. When I inherit all this, I'll take care of you, Di. I'll build you a pretty house with a big porch and a kitchen full of cookware, he promised. But fate is a treacherous beast that doesn't respect plans or promises. In 1958, when I was 17 and Jeremy was 27, measles swept through our region like a storm, taking down people everywhere. First the school children, then the adults who'd never had the disease when they were young. Jeremy was one of them. At first, it was just a fever, some red spots on his face. It's nothing, he'd say, stubborn like father, refusing to stay in bed. He kept working at the store, getting rained on, not sleeping well. In 3 days, the fever rose so high began delirious, calling for people who weren't there, screaming that his back was on fire. Father finally agreed to take him to town, but the road was a mess because of the rains. The Jeep got stuck twice. When we finally reached the clinic, the doctor just shook his head. This one's got pneumonia on top of the measles. I'll do what I can, but it's bad. 3 days later, Jeremy left this world in a stuffy room that smelled of medicine and suffering. He didn't even have the strength to say goodbye properly. He just squeezed my hand, looked into my eyes and whispered, "Take care of Mom, Daddy," and was gone, taking all my father's dreams with him. The funeral was quick, as everything is in small towns. The simple pine coffin was lowered into their clay of the municipal cemetery, while the pastor mumbled some hurried prayers. Father didn't shed a single tear. He just stood there like a cement statue, hat in hand, eyes fixed on the hole, swallowing his only son. Mama sobbed quietly, leaning on me, her legs weakening with each shovel full of dirt that fell. We returned home in a heavy silence that seemed to suffocate even our thoughts. I didn't know yet, but that silence was just the calm before the storm. For a week, Father barely left his room. He hardly ate, didn't speak to anyone. I would hear him pacing back and forth during the night, the floorboards creaking under his heavy steps. Occasionally, the sound of glass clinking indicated he was drinking from the bottle he kept hidden in the closet. On the 7th night after the funeral, I woke to a crash. I ran to the living room in my nightgown and found Father standing in the middle of the house. The dinner table overturned, plates broken on the floor and blood. That blood I'll never forget, streaming from a cut on his hand where a piece of glass had gone deep. "It doesn't make sense anymore," he shouted, his eyes glazed like those of a wounded animal. "Why build? Why work? Why save if I have no one to leave it to?" Mama tried to calm him, speaking softly, approaching slowly like someone approaching an angry dog. "We have the girl George. We have Doy." That's when turned those empty eyes to me and uttered the phrase that would change my life forever. That one. "What's a woman going to do with everything I've built? She'll just hand it over to the first man who comes along." "No, Sarah. I only have her now, and she'll have to serve a purpose." A chill ran up my spine. I didn't fully understand what he meant by that, but something inside me, perhaps the same instinct that makes a bird fly before the snake strikes, warned me he was in danger. That same night, while cleaning up the mess Father had made, it whispered quietly to those of you following along. If you can leave a comment saying where you're watching this video from, it gives me strength knowing there are people listening after so many years of keeping this story inside me. Give a like too so this account can reach more people who might need to hear that it's possible to survive even the worst nightmares. In the days that followed, Father began to change. He would look at me strangely during meals. He started demanding that I learn about the business, that I accompany him to the store in town, that I understand accounts, buying and selling, inventory. "If you're going to inherit all this, you need to know how to take care of it," he would say. But there was no concern in those words, only contained rage, as if each explanation was an accusation. "You're not Jeremy. You'll never be." At night, after dinner, he began to drink more than usual. The whiskey that was once just a sip or two became 1 or 2 entire bottles. And with the drink came violence. First against objects, breaking things, punching walls, kicking doors, then against my mother. A shove here, a slap there, always followed by senseless accusations. "It was your fault. You didn't take care of him properly when he was little. You made him weak." Mama would just lower her head and accept it all as if she deserved it. That I tried to interfere, put myself between them. Got some pushes too, but nothing compared to what was to come. 3 weeks after Jeremy's funeral, I woke in the middle of the night to the sound of my door creaking. At first, I thought it was Mama, who sometimes came to cover me when the nights got cold. But the strong smell of whiskey and sweat immediately alerted me. It was my father, stumbling in the darkness, approaching my bed. "Jeremy," he called softly, his voice slurred from drinking. "My son." I froze in fear, pretending to be asleep, praying he would realize his mistake and leave. But he sat on the edge of the bed, the straw mattress sinking under his weight, and ran his hand through my hair. "You've come back," he murmured. "I knew you would come back." When it tried to move to say I was Dorothy, not Jeremy, he grabbed my arm hard. "No, don't leave again. You're all I have." What happened that dark night, with the wind howling through the cracks in the window and the crickets singing outside, was the beginning of a torment that would last almost 2 years. A torment no 17-year-old girl should experience, especially at the hands of someone who should protect her. When the sun rose, bringing the clarity that drives away the monsters of the night, my father had already returned to his room, leaving behind a girl broken inside, crying silently so as not to wake the house. I couldn't get up to make coffee as usual. I lay there, wrapped in the blood-stained sheet, ashamed and wishing the earth would swallow me up as it had swallowed me brother. It was Mama who came into the room hours later, worried about my absence. One look was all it took for her to understand, her eyes filled with tears. She brought her hand to her mouth to stifle a sob, but she said nothing. She just sat on the edge of the bed and held my hand for a long time. "He's sick with grief, child," she finally whispered, as if that explained or justified what had happened. "Lost his mind with Jeremy's death. It will pass." But it didn't pass. That was just the first of many nights when the monster aunts called father would enter my room, sometimes calling me Jeremy, other times knowing very well who I was, but saying terrible things, that I had to be good for something, that it was my obligation to replace the son he lost, that I owed him this for raising me. And so began mitrement in a house that was once home and had now become a prison, with a man whom grief and whiskey had transformed into a monster, and a mother who, out of fear or helplessness, pretended not to see what was happening under her own roof. The pain of those days still tightens my chest when I remember, even after so many years. It seems like it was yesterday, not 1958, that my life turned upside down with Jeremy's death. The days passed and father got worse and worse, like a fruit rotting from the inside out. In the first few weeks, Hestel pretended when outsiders were around, putting on that mask of the respectable family man, devastated by the loss of his son. The neighbors would bring food, coffee, a word of comfort. The pastor would show up now and then to say a rosary, to say that God knows what's doing. Those things pastors say when they don't know what to say. No one suspected what happened when the door closed. And there were just the three offices in that isolated house. I remember one Sunday when Mr. Anderson, the owner of the general store in town, came with his whole family for a visit. They even brought a cornbread that his wife had made. Father received them all politely, offered coffee, talked about the weather, the crops, how difficult it was to run the store without Jeremy. Stayed quiet in a corner serving the visitors, avoiding looking at anyone. When Mr. Anderson asked if I was going to take over the family business, father gave a yellow smile. "What does a woman know about business, Mr. Anderson? She'll help me until I find a worthless in-law. Then I'll pass everything to him to take care of."